Okay. There you go. Welcome to the February 19th, 2026 Division of Adult Education monthly webinar. This session is being recorded. By participating in this session, you are consenting to the recording, retention, and use of this session. No other recording of this session is allowed. That includes any kind of AI note-taking. This is today's agenda. We are going to start with presentations from three of your colleague agencies around successful transition support and processes that they have in place for adult basic education and English as a second language students. Then Chrissy Klinger will provide information about some resources that the professional development system has to support you in providing transition support for your students. And then I do have some division updates and reminders at the end. So here are your three presenters, or four, I'm sorry. Josh and Ann from Lancaster 11 and IU 13, Lori from Literacy Pittsburgh, and Bill from Northampton Community College. So I will mute myself and turn it over to Josh and Ann. And do they have the ability to unmute themselves?
I'm so sorry about that. I just realized I was on mute. Thank you, Amanda.
No, okay, good.
So Anne is unable to join today, so it'll just be me. But I'd like to talk with you about the way we view transitions in IU 13 community education. Our mission here in community education is that we educate and inspire lifelong learners, build partnerships, and unite communities to transform lives. And what I'd like to highlight for you today is some of the systems that we've built. Next slide, please. So I will talk about several themes. One is one-to-one conversations between what we call advisors. They're also called student support coordinators, as well as trying to limit the barriers our students have in getting their credential evaluated. Also, we'll talk about making things really visible for our learners and some exciting career pathways maps that we've built. I'll share with you a little bit about some intensive career pathway development that we've done with some of our learners, our IETs, and our partners. Next slide. So our system for scheduling our advisor meetings is we have a Google form. And this is so that students can reach out to their advisor at any time. They complete the survey and then they schedule a meeting with their advisor. And that's for that one-on-one conversation and individualized support. A lot of the time, what we've found from tracking this data is that the focus of the meetings is on goals, but it's also very much on credential evaluation, where students want to get their credentials evaluated and they need help and assistance in knowing how to do that. So we built this system so that we could organize student requests through a central location. Student advisors talk with their students about their goals. Many students will ask about training for specific industries. Advisors will review training that's available locally and get students signed up for that training or post-secondary education. Our advisors are a team of really dedicated individuals who want to partner with learners to empower them to succeed in their goals. Our advisement supervisor, Ann Wise, has regular monthly meetings with the team of advisors where they discuss relevant topics like new local trainings that are available, systems, and what those challenges are. And that network of support is really integral to our students' success and staying current on local post-secondary training provider offerings. Next slide. So we have for credential evaluation, we have a partnership with ECE, and we have for about the past 6 years. And the partnership that we have with ECE is that they provide free vouchers for credential evaluations for our students as long as they've participated in our program. And the way that we formed this partnership is they actually reached out to us and said that they have a philanthropy wing of their organization, and they were looking for partners that they could provide some free vouchers to. We said, of course, we're very interested in that. And so our system basically is when a student requests that their credential is evaluated, we send ECE the student's name and their birth date. And then within about 3 or 4 weeks, the student receives a code. At that time, they meet with their advisor and they walk through the process of evaluating their credential. We also created a step-by-step guide for both students and staff that kind of walk through exactly what you have to do at each step of the process. ECE is open to partnerships. And so I really wanted to announce that to everyone that if you're interested, maybe you have a partnership with ECE, or maybe you don't and you want to reach out to them. If you Google ECE, their website comes right up. They have a contact form there. And again, thinking about our vision in community education of helping students with their transitions, this breaks down that cost barrier that some students have when it comes to credentialing. The one important thing I wanted to mention, and I know many of you are aware of this, it's really important to check at the post-secondary university college website to see which credentialing company they accept. That's a really important step. Many locally accept ECE, some do not. So that's a good important step because ultimately we don't want students to go through this process with ECE if the institution only accepts credentials that were evaluated through WES, for example.
Hi, Josh. This is
Yeah,
Amanda. Can you just add a little bit of information about what you mean by credential evaluation? I know you have a lot of
sure.
ESL students, but some of our programs in more rural areas may not be quite as familiar with what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. So we work with students who have diplomas, college degrees from their native countries. And the credential evaluation process allows them to send in their transcripts and what they have from their country where they went to school, and then for it to be evaluated, translated, so that they can then bring that to a US-based institution to show proof that they have completed certain classes. And then that institution does their own evaluation to determine how many classes they might need to repeat or what their coursework was in their native country, depending on their career pathway. So it's a really important step, particularly for English learners who have high levels of education. And, from their view, looking at if they can get their credential evaluated and get some credits to count on their career pathway, their educational journey, that's much better than starting at ground zero again. All right, so I also am excited to share with you these career pathways maps that we've created. And so what we've done is we've used local funding from Lancaster's EARN provider, EDSI, to create special individual career pathways maps based on different industries. And what we've done is we've included a lot of information about what types of education is required for a career pathway, but not only that, what types of workforce skills are required, and what types of training are required as well. So I'm going to put a link into the chat, and this is a Google link. Let me just grab it real quick. And you can click on this link and you'll be able to see and explore all of these career pathways maps that we created. Let me put that in the chat. And what we found is that this is a really critical step for learners to see themselves as part of a larger educational journey, that when they're in an HSE class or they're in an ESL class, adults are motivated by goals. We know that as adult education providers. And so it's really important for them to not just know where they are in their educational journey right now and their workforce development, but where can they go and what options locally are available to them. And so Ann Wise and our program director, Tim Shank, have spearheaded this project. and we're finding that it's just really good informational resources that's available to our students. We also are fortunate that our Lancaster Workforce Development Board and our CareerLink websites have put these up, so they're viewing them as a community resource as well. So if you want to go to the next slide, I'll show you an example of what this looks like. So we've created roadmaps. And the ESL roadmap basically describes from the very first class that they take, or from registration, and then the first class that they take, what steps along the way should they be progressing through. And so you can see step 1 is signing up for our ESL class. Step 2 is taking a beginner intermediate class. Of course, that depends on their level. Not everyone starts. It depends on their CASAS assessment. And step 3 is when we try and target some career pathways discussions with our advisors. They then progress up through our ESL levels. Step 5, really working on exploring their goals and what that might look like. And then ultimately step 6, our outcome. And we've listed all of our IETs and workforce classes that we have available in-house for our students there. Next slide. This is our HSE roadmap. And so you can see there, attending HSE class is step 1. And then we start career pathways discussions. We encourage our students to take GED practice exams prior to taking a subject test. Step 4, they explore further education and goals. And then ultimately, we want them to pass all of their HSE exams. Next slide. So in that Google folder and the link that I shared, you'll see different industry sectors and then the information that I was talking about earlier. So this example was for healthcare. And the industry guide includes local information about training programs, the education and training that's required for that, the workforce prep skills, and the credentials that's needed. Anne and Tim are hoping to give a PACE presentation specifically on these career pathways maps. So keep your eyes peeled for that coming up if you'd like to learn more. Next slide. In partnership with the Literacy and Learning Success Centers, we've developed more intensive career pathway systems for some of the local and federal grants that we've held that really focus on career pathway development. In this case, with some of these grants, what we've done is we have advisors, multilingual advisors, who meet with students over a series of check-ins to explore career exploration analysis, with the ultimate development of an individualized career pathway plan that has an action plan that lists the specific steps for students to achieve their career goal. And again, it's individualized. So it's a customized career pathway action plan that our advisors make with each student that they meet with. Through this work, we've found that a critical step is a supportive relationship between the advisor and the student. Because they need to be able to form trust, and our advisors empower students to reach their ultimate goals. So what we found through this work is that it takes time. It takes multiple conversations. It takes adjustments to the action plans as things come up with students. But we've built a system where ultimately students, we print out their action plan, and then we also have a career ladder that's individualized for them that we print out. We ask them, stick it on your refrigerator, keep it top of mind, because these are the steps for you to fully realize your goal here in the United States. Next slide. So here's a list of the workforce prep and IETs that we currently offer. Having these classes is really critical in helping our students learn workforce skills and transition into employment. So we're happy to provide all of these different courses. Our students move through these courses, they graduate, and they get positions in the field. For example, with our teacher assistant training, students who complete that training course, it's really a training course for paraeducators, teacher assistants, they're actually guaranteed an interview with our IU13 organization because we employ many paraprofessionals. And so this has been really rewarding where we've seen students who have moved up through our classes, take the teacher assistant training, and now are our colleagues here at IU13 working in school districts. Next slide. So our partners, we couldn't do this without our partners. First and foremost, the Literacy and Learning Success Centers, who's our core partner in adult education in Lancaster and Lebanon, is integral in providing services for their students, collaborating on some of our transition work. When I talked about the intensive career pathway planning that we do, we worked directly with Literacy Council on that. In fact, they provided the framework for us to work on that. So we're really fortunate to partner with them. We also have started to partner with St. Joe's, of course, our local PA Career Links, HAC, and then our Spanish American Civic Associations. Next slide. All right, so that's it from me. Thank you, everyone. And my email address is there. If you'd like a connection with ECE or you just have a question in general, don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josh. That was great information. And just to let everyone know, we do have kind of a slide at the end of the series of participation that has questions on it. So as you're listening to things, if you have any questions, there will be a time for questions at the end of the presentations. Next is Lori from Literacy Pittsburgh.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. Josh, great presentation. I learned a lot from you. Happy to build on what Josh is telling everyone. My presentation is taking you a little bit from how we started with our college and career pathways work at Literacy Pittsburgh. It's been a big cross-team effort that's been led by several of the teams that we have here, the program leadership team and different project coordinators. And we have a college and career pathways team, a student service team, and a strategic initiatives team that are all working together to make college and career pathways happen. And because we're just a literacy council not connected to college or a training provider, things may look a little bit different for us. On the next slide, what happened was we made our strategic plan that started in 2024. We made a bet that Literacy Pittsburgh needs to play an important role in developing the region's talent, and that we really wanted to focus on the strategic challenge of improving our educational and career outcomes. And we decided that we wanted to develop skill building and career development pathways that would enable us to serve more students, increase their persistence, and then really look at what we could do as an agency to expand our offerings to help our students on their pathway beyond just learning English or obtaining a high school credential. Next slide, please. So we had a project vision where we stated that we would have our students effectively navigating a pathway to college or career and making sure that they understood the process, that we had that aligned coursework, and that we were being really intentional about building connections with employers and colleges and other partners who would invest in our students and invest in being a partner in our work. And that we would make sure that all of the students that we serve, whether they're in class-based programs or tutoring or our family literacy program, that they would be able to avail themselves of all the opportunities that we do provide to them. And we really wanted to be strategic about what we're expecting and trying to get from our partner institutions and employers. We wanted to make sure that they would be invested in supporting our students. We really wanted them to know what we were teaching at Literacy Pittsburgh and what the different levels meant and what our students, the skills that they have and how that would translate to helping them either with their enrollments or with hiring employees who would stay with them. And we really wanted them to be a partner. So we were looking at what can we provide to them as well as what can they help us with to strengthen our programming. And this has really helped to elevate Literacy Pittsburgh's role in the talent pipeline here in the region. And we've been able to connect with a lot more training partners and employers. So next slide, please. Every year we have organizational goals that align to our strategic plan and that also help to guide our staff's individual goals. And for this year, for this fiscal year, we had a change goal around really working to expand and align our programs, our student services, and our career-oriented classes to make a seamless journey for our students from intake through graduation. We did a lot of work around what does seamless journey mean, both for our staff, our partners, and our students. So as Josh was saying too, we designed student learning plans and portfolio checklists. We're trying to reach 100 students with these for college or career goals. And we're building pathways to career programming. And we made a goal of really reaching out and working with 5 employer partners. And we already had about 5 education institutions on board. So having this as a goal and really tracking it has helped to keep us on track to keep expanding our programming and serving more students. Next slide, please. So we started with our college pathways work. We figured that's where we had more experience. And so that was the first avenue that we tackled. And then we worked on career pathways second. But we looked at who were the college partners that, number one, our students were interested in and who were interested in working with us. The Community College of Allegheny County has always been a really great partner with us. But we also surveyed our students, and we had a couple hundred students write back and tell us what schools they were interested in. So we reached out to Point Park, Carlow University, the University of Pittsburgh, and one of our other partners, Community College of Beaver County, to see how they would like to partner with us. We told them about our plans, and they really got invested in talking to us about what skills they saw that students coming into their institutions were lacking, that a program like ours could help them to develop to be successful while they were going there. And through that, by talking to the partner institutions and seeing where there was room for students to have improvement, and looking and surveying our students as well and saying, what do you think you need help with to get into college and be successful? We merged those responses, and we built out 3 college related classes. One was just one thinking about college. What do you need to do when you're thinking about it? What do you need to know? Then another one about getting ready for college. That's more building some skills. And then we really focused in also on writing for college success. And we even had professors from other colleges who teach writing come in to help develop that class and then offer it. And we also have developed a series of lunch and learns for college around information sessions about different programs that they offer, different tracks they offer, and different supportive services. So we built out a lot of college programming based on both the needs of the institutions and our students. And we really focused on piloting those, refining them to continue to offer them 3 times per year. Pardon me? Okay, so next slide, please. Then we started to think, once we got the college pathways down, we did the same thing for career pathways. This was, again, informed by different partners and students that we have. And we found that when we surveyed our students and we were looking at partners who were reaching out to us to tell us about job opportunities or careers, they fell into 3 main buckets: healthcare, the trades, and then the third broad category that's administrative, finance, and IT. So we did that based on those hundreds of surveys that we were getting back from students that were telling us what their interests were. And then we again aligned those with the partners and seeing what skills they were looking for that our students might qualify for careers that had career pathways with those partners. So next slide. So when we started to look at our career pathways work, we were again asking the partners if they would want to be a true partner in this endeavor with us, and that we would work together to help build out the 3 pathways for our students. You can see on the left some of the core partners that we were working with. APRI, you have some acronyms there. That is A. Philip Randolph Institute Breaking the Chains of Poverty program, and JFCS is Jewish Family and Community Services. So the core partners, we asked them to be engaged in reviewing some of the curriculum that we were developing or helping to shape the curriculum. We've asked them to come into our classes and present to students about careers in the fields, and whether or not they come in and do lunch and learns that we could record for students who might not be able to come and hear about the different opportunities that they have but that would be available as a library for them to go back and hear about different careers, what they pay, what the requirements are, and how to get in touch with a representative. It's always nice to have somebody that our students can talk to if they have more questions. And because many of our students are English language learners, we also talk to our partners about English language learners, their levels, and what skills they have, and make sure they're able to also support them. And then they connect with us and they commit to interview and hire our students. So they're coming to our career fairs and our resource fairs, so that we're making those warm handoffs and connecting our students with the employers here on site. Next slide, please. As I said, we keep engaging our students in our process. Oh, sorry, our career pathways programming. Some of the things that we did do was upskill our own staff to make sure that we could offer some of this, because I said, as a literacy council, we're not connected directly with some training programs, but we've really built out our digital skills network, and we had our staff trained to offer classes that lead to certifications in QuickBooks and professional bookkeeping. We also have staff who are certified, and we work with Word, Excel, and Expert Excel, Microsoft Office Specialist credentialing. We have a customer service class where we partner with another organization who offers a certificate in customer service. And then we have other partnerships that are more contextual English classes where we're doing English for job seekers, English for hospital jobs, our immigrant workforce program that partners with Jewish Family and Community Services Career Development Center to help build interviewing and job search skills. As I said, we do information sessions that Lunch and Learns with college and career partners, and these have become so popular that we're offering about one a week for our students to sign up, and they're over the lunch hour, and they can learn about different schools or different programs that might be of interest to them. We offer a full array of digital skills classes and different career exploration workshops for our students to take advantage of. Some of these things we're also making sure that we're offering to waiting students. We are a program that has about 300 to 400 students waiting at any time. So we're making sure that while they're waiting for their core English or basic skills class, that they also know about some of the other classes that we're offering. And if they're ready for that in their journey with us, that these are available for them. Next slide. Okay. And again, we keep in contact with our students by engaging them throughout the process. We're doing formal surveys with our students at least twice per year, looking at what students are interested, what career sectors they're interested in, and telling them about who our partners are. This is because we ask that, of course, when they're coming into our program, but they might not be ready for that. And then this is another way where we're putting it in front of them again, that these are programs that we offer and different courses or partnerships that they might be ready for at that time. It also serves as a way for us to then have a list of students who are interested in different sectors or careers that we can follow up with, or offer some of the YouTube videos that we have, or that our career advisors and program coordinators can reach out to make sure that we're making all the connections with them in a timely manner. As Josh said, I love their career map. We started a pathways checklist that we're using with students when they reach certain levels, where they have a one-to-one interview with one of our staff members. It could be a teacher, another program person, career advisor, or even some volunteers. That is a checklist that has a conversation with the student about what their goals might be related to college and career pathways. And then the checklist is a way for a staff member to suggest classes and learning opportunities for the students. And then we're changing that checklist into a learning plan for college and career pathways for our students that they can use to help them keep track of the classes that we offer along their pathway, where they can find the information, and for our staff people to communicate with them. And then we can use those checklists and learning plans for to improve our program and make sure that our student is having that seamless journey through our program and really understanding what we offer and where they can find that information. Next. We've created a student portal that this is where we're directing all of our students to, because there is so much information. The student portal, as you can see, has different information along the top related to their orientation, jobs, college, computer skills, our student support, or our newsletters. But what I do is a screenshot here of one of the calendars that can show like, oh, here's our digital literacy classes. They're coded in blue, or student services, things that we offer. And the students can click on that and see what it is, more information, and how they can register. So this will be another way that we're targeting and training our students to go to one place to find all of the information that we're and programming that we're offering for them. Next slide, please. What we found is that this is working. So I took a quick screenshot of the KPIs that we track monthly, but this was the year to date so far. So in 24-25, same month of the year, we can look at the difference in how our employment outcomes, high school equivalency, post-secondary, and we're tracking this with our own internal database system, like how many students are being served through career services or our career programs and our digital literacy classes, and how many are in service coordination. So we're seeing a marked increase. So it's like saying that, yes, our bet is paying off. I do have to say we're still building this as we're flying the plane. So this is also great for our staff to see that what we're doing is working, and it's helping to connect more students to those types of things that will help them to have higher wages and better career pathways. Next slide, please. So our next steps in the process as we're building this are that we're building out one-pagers for the sector-specific career pathways that we have. So we have one done for college and career pathways. And then for each of those 3 career sectors that we have, we'll have one-pager information with the overview as to what we're providing, who our partners are, the different ways that students can engage with us, and the next steps. And then we'll be using that again as collateral for for all 3 of them, students, our staff, and our partners. And then we're continuing to refine and update our processes for embedding pathways into our existing functions, like from orientation through, how we're communicating with our tutored students or our class-based students on a regular basis, and making sure that because we are a large staff, we have to come up with standard operating procedures, and making sure that we're keeping college and career pathways front and center at all of our different team meetings and staff meetings, so that everybody knows where we are and where we're going, and that they know the whole process. And then we're refining our packaging of the communications that we have for employers and potential partners, collecting the success stories and showing others like why it's good to invest their time and energy into helping us and our students. And then we're considering what other partnerships and existing pathway sectors that we should be considering. We're looking into taking some of the work that we're doing and building those into formal IETs, and being able to showcase that work to keep our students moving along those pathways in those 3 sectors. So as I said, part of ours is that this has been a big cross-team collaboration. Here's the contact information for the leaders of the 2 teams. Nicole Menino Johnson is leading our digital skills and career programs work with me, and Rebecca Gamble is also leading student services and college pathways. And then we do that in collaboration with our class-based director of adult education and our director of volunteer and community programs and our child and family programs. So again, if you're interested in hearing more about how we are building these or how we might be able to share our resources with you, we'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lori. Excuse me. And our last presenter is Bill from Northampton Community College.
Thanks, Amanda. Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm going to talk to you about our Behavioral Health Technician Bridge program. And that was born out of the idea of the need for behavioral health techs within the Pocono and Lehigh Valley region. The purpose of the program is to equip learners with the essential language proficiency, cultural understanding, and interpersonal skills necessary to successfully enter and navigate the behavioral mental health workforce. with specific focus on school, home, community, and healthcare settings. The second purpose is to prepare students with the skills needed to pass the registered behavioral technician exam. Next slide, please. The Lehigh Valley region has a major surge that's happening currently with Hanover Hill Behavioral Health in Bethlehem. It's a 144 bed facility that's creating 300 new jobs. Many of those are specifically mental health technician related positions. In the Pocono region, projections for that area indicate an annual demand of approximately 538 openings for psychiatric and home health support. Many of those are driven at the higher levels of that particular field. However, over the last 3 months, 4 new autism agencies have opened in the Northeast and Southeast region of the state, which will continue to drive the need for behavioral health technicians. In addition to that, the growth driver is the baby boomer cliff, or the aging population in the Northeast. It's creating a high volume of openings due to both the need for more care and the retirement of current workers. Next slide, please. The local labor market data, the average openings in the Lehigh Valley and Poconos are between 150 and 200, with the estimated total of 750 to 1,000. The registered behavioral technician credential and completion of courses like the behavioral health technician bridge program are cited as high priority qualifications by local employers, which are currently expanding their health units. And that includes those units within the intermediate units, autism services, early childhood education, special needs organizations. So with that being said, the educational impact on upward mobility, our program, again, would train behavioral health technicians to prepare for the RBT course. The requirements to enter into behavioral health technician would be a high school diploma or its equivalent. As you can see, 35 to 40% of those occupations fall within the work that we will be doing within the Bridge program. From there, they can move into the registered behavioral technician, which often is covered by employers as far as the training cost and the observation and the testing fees, and that's usually done within 90 days of hire. So this program also prepares students for that RBT test as well. So the Bridge program essentially covers between 50 and 60% of the hires within the behavioral and mental health realm. From that pathway, they can move on to behavioral specialists, case managers, or BCABAs with a bachelor's degree for supervisory roles, and then from there can move on to the BCBA, a licensed counselor or social worker. So there's various routes that our students could take after completion. Next slide, please. You can see the rates of the behavioral health career ladder and their compensation. So the starting rates are between $17 and $22 per hour in the Lehigh Valley and in the Poconos. Then moving on to the RBT, which will be achievable for those students, that changes the rate to $19.50 to $28 an hour. Employers that we have talked to, they're looking to transition folks from part-time to full-time so that during the lapse in caseload, they can handle the associated paperwork reflective of these jobs. In addition to that, and to building the program, we've reached out to hospitals, intermediate units, and autism clinics to provide us with the career ladder and the compensations that you see listed there. Next slide, please. So the duration and format and the audience in building these programs with those set agencies and actually conducting focus groups with current RBTs and behavioral health technicians, we focused on what that 40-hour RBT prep class did not provide for them, and which the skills that were not provided that they could utilize in their job. Many of those things focused on talking with caregivers, a day in the life of what that position is. So when we built this, we looked at a 40-hour component of those academic skills, if you will, and then another 20-hour component regarding the day in the life of a BHT and what skills need to be in place in speaking with a caregiver of that individual. So with that being said, we expanded it from what we originally wanted for a 40-hour program to a 60-hour program, which would be 10 hours a week for 6 weeks, 2 days per week. The format would be hybrid, and the target of learner, due to the vocabulary, would be low adult secondary education or high adult secondary education and advanced ESL. Next slide, please. The development of the course modules, after speaking with current BHTs, we are focusing on the fundamentals in the vocabulary, communication with supervisors, communication with caregivers, job expectations and professionalism, cultural competence and behavioral health, and other related certificates that we felt would be beneficial in BHTs performing their work out in the community. So in the next few slides, I am going to talk about what the content offering is for each. So behavioral health fundamentals and vocabulary, we're talking about the terminology that is required to pass the registered behavioral technician test. We're addressing documentation language, how you do that in a hospital versus an autism clinic versus in a community and home setting. And then the setting and context is extremely important of how you're communicating that information to an educational professional versus a healthcare professional. And then how are you communicating that jargon to parents in plain language that they can understand, or a caregiver in plain language, so they can help that client. Next slide, please. Communication with supervisors, written reporting in email, what that looks like, what that contains, how to appropriately phrase it, looking at what fact from opinion and separating those out and providing factual information and how that's being used. Verbal reporting, so everyone is on the same page, especially when they're handing off a client from one BHT to another or another staff member, and receiving constructive feedback and how that should be taken and responded to. The main component, which we're getting to on the next few slides, will be the communication with caregivers. We found this to be the biggest gap, and the main focal point is how do you relay information to the caregivers in a way that is understandable, empathetic, delivering difficult news, being able to involve the caregiver in the process and what logical next steps may be in that individual's treatment plan, as well as scheduling and coordination. How do you integrate behavioral health strategies in the home, in the community, within the caregiver's own life and work scheduling? This also, that module was in consultation with caregivers of special needs individuals. So we got the BHTs together, we got the caregivers together, found out what those disconnects were, and then we integrated that into that module. Next slide, please. Job expectations. We go over professional ethics. We go over confidentiality. We talk about FERPA and we talk about HIPAA, depending on if it's an educational or a clinical setting. One of the things we see in that particular field is burnout. So we want to talk to our students in this program about managing stress and self-care. And also documentation standards. As we know from our field, if you didn't document it, it didn't happen. And obviously that's the same with the mental health and behavioral health field. So we want to make sure that documentation meets the standards, professional ethics are always in place, but at the same time, managing burnout, knowing what those signs are and how to integrate self-care into the mix. Next slide, please. We also talk about workplace culture. Again, folks are going to be placed in the hospital setting, education, as well as clinical settings. There's a different workplace culture in each one of those. So identifying those specific work cultures, asking representatives from those three areas to come in and talk with students for what their workplace culture would look like. Having a BHT come in from each one of those areas to talk with students and discuss a day in the life for their specific occupation. Looking at different communication differences with your audience. So what does that look like? And we already talked about that a little bit, but with a supervisor, with a caregiver, with the client themselves. Not all of these positions will be with obviously children. We're looking at young adults and adults in the mix and the aging population. And remember, diversity and inclusion language. We definitely want to build an asset-based language, as we have learned in our field from professional development. And we want to be respectful of the culture of the patients or clients that are being served. And how do we kind of address those things, especially when what the BHT may be recommending is maybe in direct conflict with a cultural norm for individuals. So we discuss all of those things. And in addition to that, we have related certifications on the next slide, which the RBT training that students would get into after this, that would be provided by the employer. It doesn't talk about mental health first aid training, nor does it address folks with hidden disabilities and what types of accessibility needs they may have. That may be included in their health plan. It may be included in their educational plan. But how do we address those things when we are out in the community or in the home setting? So it was important for us to include those related certifications so that caregivers can be addressing that proactively in the home and community and kind of meshing the same prescriptive strategies that we're finding in healthcare and education outside of those particular environments. So after students complete those kind of training formats, we move on to the assessment strategy. So they take a vocabulary quiz, they have a written portfolio of sample documentation that they would send to caregivers and their employers. We have role plays and debrief of those of supervisor, caregiver, and ethical scenarios. We have some case study review. And then finally, those other two add-ons that I mentioned, the completion of the mental health first aid and hidden disability sunflower certificate based on a pre and post exam. And like I said, we've created this bridge program due to the need we're finding in the area. And on a personal note, for the need that I found 3 years ago for my family. And now we've noticed this extreme expanse of services in the area, which I am thankful for. but now we need to upskill our students in preparing them for these roles. And I will say we take our career pathway surveys at the beginning of each of our orientations with students. I have crosswalked those with the openings that will be appearing and have appeared in the Lehigh Valley and the Poconos, and that will be our first line of enrollments for this program that I have outlined for you today. So thank you, Amanda, for having me present this information, and thank you everybody for listening. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you, Bill, and appreciate that. And I will turn it over to Chrissy, who's going to talk about some resources that are available to programs and to students for transition support.
Thanks. Everyone should have received a Word document attached to the meeting, and it has hyperlinks. So if for some reason you are unable to access that, you can email me and I can get that to you. I'll put my email in the chat. So as Josh had mentioned about ECE and WES and helping individuals with credential translation and, determining if they can get college credits, we do have a document for practitioners. We also have a document that you can use with adult learners to help them organize that information. And we can work with you to figure out how to use those documents with your staff or with your learners. We also have recently updated the student support coordinator page on the PAIR website. So it is now arranged by the way a student might go through a program. And there are lots of resources on there for career awareness, career exploration, and planning. And we have career maps. So as Josh again was explaining what they were able to do in their region, Loretta is available to help regions with doing career maps or having those customized career maps with learners. We also have a regional planning page, and we have some inventories. So like Lori was talking about, sort of taking inventory of like who you're working with, how you're working with them, and then setting some goals of how you might want to increase the work that you're doing and tracking how that's going. We do have some tools to help with that. And then finally, we have 2 courses in the portal that now became on demand that are live that anyone can take at any time. They can self-enroll. We have supporting adult learner transition to post-secondary education and training, and supporting adult learner transition to employment. So as Bill was talking about, maybe a specific initiative that you're having and you're trying to help a group of students go into a training, this course might be helpful for staff that would be supporting those students. And it does include some action planning documents and gap analysis. And just wanted to make sure everyone was aware of those supports. And again, I'll put my email in the chat if you have questions.
Thank you all 4 presenters for some really amazing information. There's some great work happening. I do want to acknowledge to everyone who's on here that our 3 presenting agencies are all large programs. They have program administrators and coordinators who have been in the field for a long time. I think they have fairly established staff. So some of this might, especially for those of you who are smaller programs or you have newer staff, this might be like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to do that. There's not an expectation that everybody's doing everything that these 3 presenters are doing, but the hope is that you will find ideas from what they have presented to start with, right? And that you can build on that. There really is at a federal level, especially, more and more emphasis on the workforce development aspect of adult education. And, it's always been in there around career pathways. But, there's a stress now on IETs and bridge programs. There's more of an emphasis on that. So this is a way to see what some of our larger, well-established programs are doing, and hopefully you will see some ideas that you can build on. Some of you who are smaller might want to see if there are ways that you can coordinate with other programs in a region, because alone you can't meet the needs, but working together Also, those of you who are nonprofits, you might have board members who would be able to connect you with entities that can help you develop these kind of things, so you don't have to do all of it with the funding. I also believe that in several of the presenters' cases, they do have a lot of other funding through fundraising and other grants and such to support this work. So I believe in many of the cases, if not all of them, a lot of the work that's being done is being done with other funding sources and is then being used to support the students who are attending classes that are funded by our funds. So I did want to provide that context because it can seem a bit overwhelming if you're a small program that doesn't necessarily have the resources of our larger programs. But there's some great ideas that people can build on. Let's see. I'm just double checking to make sure there aren't any questions. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question? Okay. If not, what I'll say is my slides are probably much more like administrator directed. So if there are some of you on who are, case managers, student support specialists, advisors, teachers, it is 11:57. In going over my slides, I will go past 12 o'clock. So if there's anyone who feels like you've heard a lot and you're ready to move on to other tasks today, I understand that, and that's fine. And I'll just go into my slides now. So we have gotten some questions around where the data are around your agency performance, in part because I've been delayed in getting documents to the correct website. So I wanted to clarify that when your agency performance data are considered official, we post them to the Pennsylvania Department of Education, Division of Adult Education Administrative Documents page. And that the performance data is, you have to scroll all the way to the bottom of the page to see that. The 2022-23 data is kind of in the old format that we had been using for many, many years. And it includes both EFL gains, and the EFL gains on those spreadsheets are 100% pre-post testing. It does not include any of the new EFL gain MSG options. And then there are separate spreadsheets that look at the follow-up outcomes like the employment, transition to post-secondary education and training. For the 23-24 performance data, right now we only have the enrollment and the MSG by pre-post testing, high school equivalency subtest, and HSE credential posted on the official data. We don't have any of the other follow-up outcomes available yet. Then draft data, we post draft performance data to the PAIR website so that to give you all a chance to look at it and think, if you think it looks good, it looks good. You don't have to do anything. If you have concerns about the data, it gives you a chance to look at your data, compare it to what's there, share concerns with your advisor, provide them some information about where you think the discrepancies are. And such. And I did send out an email to program contacts yesterday evening, probably somewhere around 5 or 6 p.m. I don't remember exactly, letting you know that the 24-25 MSG by EFL gain performance data is posted. So the enrollment data were posted in September, and those are final. The spreadsheets that are posted now with the measurable skill gain by EFL gain include the enrollment numbers, but those are not new numbers. Those reflect what was finalized last fall. Those spreadsheets include EFL gain by pre-post testing EFL gained by passing a high school equivalency test, and EFL gained by transitioning to post-secondary education or training. Heather in my office is beginning to work on employment outcomes. Employment outcomes are much more complicated to calculate, so that will take a while. She has begun working on looking at employment outcomes for 23-24, and then the 24-25 employment outcomes will happen later this year. A little context for the employment outcomes. Those are what we call exit-based outcomes, which means they are students who have exited our programs. So you, of course, know that measurable skill gain is for all participants, right? So it doesn't matter if they're still in your program, if they exited, we look at measurable skill gain. For the employment outcomes, those are exit-based. So we have to first determine which students exited the program, in this case during 23-24. And the definition of exiting the program means that they did not receive any services for 90 or more days, and they were not scheduled to receive any services. So that's going to involve looking at attendance over program years. So if you have someone who attended your program through June of 2024, we have to see if they returned at any point in 24-25 to see if they exited. So there are a lot of steps involved in that. The other delay related to employment outcomes, we look at the second employment in the second quarter after exit, and we use data matching with the wage data from labor and industry. And for example, I'll go with the 24-25, for students who exited in the April through June quarter of 2025, we would be looking at their employment data from the last quarter of calendar year 2025, so October through December. And employers have until March 31st of this year to submit that data to L&I. So there is a pretty significant delay in when we can do the data matching in order to have full data to match with. So I wanted to provide a little context for why those employment outcomes are delayed and takes us some additional time. So that's around data. At the very end of this, once I stop recording, I will open up one of the spreadsheets for the 24-25 draft data to kind of quickly go over what the various columns mean if you're interested. There's no need for you to stay on if you're not. But I don't, because that includes agency names and data, I didn't want that to be part of the recording. So just some reminders around data. In monitoring reviews, when the teams do the student files and compare what is in eData with what is on the forms, in the student files, they are finding a lot of discrepancies. So they're finding items that the students have not completed on the intake forms are completed in eData because they have to be in order to save the student. Or the information is different. So it's kind of unclear where that information is coming from. You know, it's not on the intake form, so who's making the decision around what gets entered into eData? Also, we've had cases of agencies using an old form from prior programs years that doesn't necessarily have the new required element, but the information is entered in eData. And this is an issue because it suggests that the data entry person is making informed guesses rather than entering data as reported by the students. So, as you're looking over your data workflow, making sure that you include steps for some staff to review the forms for completeness and accuracy before they're given to the data entry staff, and also that you have ways to document when items are updated or corrected on the forms. So that's just something that's come out of the monitoring. We also want to remind you that you are required to enter all your data within 14 days of collection once you have access to eData, and all of you have had access to eData since December. As a reminder, this includes students with less than 12 hours of attendance. We are still hearing that there are a few agencies that say they do not enter students until they reach 12 hours. That is out of compliance. So you are required to enter all students. The only exception that we allow is on those occasions where you have someone who has come in and completed the intake form, but hasn't done anything else, right? So they really don't have any attendance hours at all. And they don't for the entire program year. They're what we call a reportable. They've expressed interest, but they haven't done anything. Those you could kind of hold and enter towards the end of the year when you know that they aren't going to be coming in at all. But they do have to be entered because they are reportable, and we do have to include those individuals in our federal reporting. And finally, I want to remind you that the data awareness campaign is required for all grantees and subgrantees. Everyone plays a role in our state's performance numbers, and everyone needs to be paying attention to their data to ensure that we are able to meet our targets. Participation in the data awareness campaign includes completing all modules and attending the webinars. The due date for completion of Module 1 was February 10th, which was 2 days before the webinar. Report pulled at the end of that day. 87 people had completed all of the assignments. That was only 66% of the participants. We know that there were several people who completed the modules prior to the webinar who didn't show up. So they completed it, but they didn't complete it by that due date. There were 19% of the participants. There were 25 people who had never accessed the course at all. And there were a couple of agencies where that reflected basically all of their staff. So the staff had not participated at all. It is a requirement. Incentive funding for those of you who are getting it. Incentive funding or the additional funding if you requested that and were approved for it. We are still waiting for the final approval to come through from the governor's budget office, hoping it's coming through very soon. When it does, we will be sending out the funding notification letters. After that happens, Whitney in my office is going to have to create the funding adjustments, which will take probably a day or two. So she'll go in and create the funding adjustments, at which case you will be able to do the funding adjustment and get it submitted. In the funding adjustments, it will only be obviously the state funding. So if you have an 064 grant, it will only be the state 064. The federal 064 budget will be completely locked down. In the state 064 budget, we will be marking the original budget sections as approved to lock them down, right? You're not going to go into those original sections and make changes there. We have created what we are calling incentive fund sections, the same as that we've done the last couple of years. And that's where you're going to enter the how you're going to expend the incentive funds. We are also going to be opening the agency information sections, agency activity summary, subgrantee activity summary, and counties served to update the state funding amounts or the funding amounts in those sections. Those of you who were approved for the additional funds for very specific activities, you do have to use those exactly as you were approved to use them. We are not creating separate sections for those. You will enter those expenditures in the incentive fund sections. They should be in their own entry, and the description should say approved additional funds for, and then what we approved them for. And we do not have, we're not establishing deadline for the funding adjustments. We recognize some of you can submit them more quickly than others, but please submit them as soon as possible after they are available to you, just so that we can get them processed and get them money out to you in a relatively timely fashion. That usually ends up being April. And finally, when you do the quarterly expenditure reports, please remember to update the budget summary section of the QER with the new amounts. Okay, GED online proctoring. I sent an email to program contacts on Tuesday morning about this change, which was implemented on Monday afternoon. I'd like to provide a little bit of context and background for the change. In Pennsylvania, you have to be a Pennsylvania resident in order to take the high school equivalency test as a PA resident, right? That's not the case in all states. In some states, I think Washington, D.C., you do not have to be a resident in order to take the test under the jurisdiction of that entity. But in Pennsylvania, you do. For online proctoring, because the proctors are located throughout the country, they're not necessarily based in the state where the test taker is located. They check for identity, and they're very strict about that, but they do not check for residency. So you could have a person, because they're saying, yes, is this the person who's supposed to be taking the test? Yes, but they're not checking to make sure that the person is a resident of the state that they're taking the test under. And we have found out that the GED system does not prevent non-Pennsylvania residents from registering to take the test in Pennsylvania. And we discovered this because when we got the invoices for the use of the voucher, there are people in there who have addresses that are not Pennsylvania addresses. So apparently people are able to do that. We will not be paying for that. We've informed GED Testing Service that we will not be paying for non-Pennsylvania residents who have used the vouchers. But we do need to prevent that from from happening moving forward. And so the process they are putting in place, we are putting in place together with GED Testing Service, is that when a tester creates their account or goes into account for the first time to select online proctoring as the test option, a hold is put on their account and they get an alert. That alert will tell them that they have to submit proof of Pennsylvania residency to the division. The instructions are in the alert. This is the resource account email address that they should send them to. The message says you must live in Pennsylvania to test there. In order to be approved to schedule an online GED test appointment, you must email proof of your Pennsylvania residency by providing the following in an email to raedhse@pa.gov. Your full name, your GED ID from this GED account, your date of birth, and a document that shows your current Pennsylvania address. The following documents will be accepted: a current valid Pennsylvania driver's license or Pennsylvania photo ID, a current Pennsylvania vehicle registration, a bank statement or utility bill dated within the last 90 days, or a current signed lease agreement. Whatever document you provide must match the address you provided on your GED account, as well as the address on the ID that you will use to check in on the test day. And then, of course, once our office approves confirms that the person is in fact a Pennsylvania resident, they will be approved to register, the hold will be lifted, and they'll be able to schedule the test. So, this is coming into my staff who have other things that they're working on as well. We do hope to process the submissions within 2 business days. However, depending on the number of emails we receive, it may be more than that. And obviously, we will not be reviewing emails on the weekends or on the holidays. So at this point, we're starting with only requiring proof of residency the first time the test taker selects online proctoring. So once they do it the first time, they should be able to schedule the remaining online proctored tests without having to show proof of residency again. We'll see how things go. If it turns out to still be an issue, we may have to get stricter with that. And related to HiSET, so far we have not had an issue with non-Pennsylvania residents being able to use the discount code for the HiSET. So at this time, we are not implementing it with the HiSET online proctoring. And that is the end of my formal presentation. Are there any questions about any of the content that was covered? Okay, I will go ahead and stop the recording.